Hey, what's up, family? As I always say. So I wanted to talk about the movie Harriet. I just finished watching it. Hey, Sheila, Rodney, Milton, thanks for joining me. So I just came from watching the movie Harriet, and I just wanted to do a quick movie. Well, it's probably not going to be quick knowing me because, yeah, I'm never quick. Tell me if you all can hear the sound pretty clearly, those that are watching the live stream. If you're listening to this on the podcast, then, well, you couldn't see me do that if you're listening on the podcast. Anywho, so I saw the movie Harriet tonight. And, yeah, I just wanted to talk about the movie, talk about Harriet Tubman in general, some interesting facts, and, yeah, just have a good conversation. Hello, Andrea. How are you today? Hey, Eunice. So, before I do that, in the background there, this is a new song that I'm working on, a new chill out track, instrumental. I'll turn it up a little bit so you all can hear it. Tell me off if you can hear the sound pretty well. Live streamers. So, this is a track that I am releasing probably in the next 2 days. And it's just a chill out track. There's going to be 2 versions to it. I made this for my upcoming video where I'm showing some chiropractor exercises that I've learned and that I'm utilizing for my back and to help me to feel better. And this track is playing in the background. Sweet. Thank you, Andrea. Okay, so here's the deal. This song, this track, this instrumental groove doesn't yet have a name. So what I was just thinking about, and we'll do here, throughout the course of this live stream, you know, as you're just kind of letting that soak into your ears, I like to see if you all can come up with a name for the track. So if something comes to mind when you hear this, drop it in the comment section, and I actually think I'm going to choose from one of the names that you all dropped to title this song. So, hey Gregory, thanks for watching. Okay, so on to the topic at hand, because you all know how long-winded I can be. I watched the movie Harriet tonight, and Harriet, of course, is a film about Harriet Tubman, a slave turned abolitionist. This movie was really good, and let's see, the main actor, I just had my page here. The main actor was, okay, here we go. So played by Cynthia Erivo, and she did a really good job. I hope I'm pronouncing her name right. But she did a really good job. She had the passion, she had the fire, she had everything that we could imagine from the story of Harriet when we hear about her characteristics. So she did a great job, and let's see what else here. So I'll first just tell my thoughts, and then I'll go from there. We'll talk about some facts. There was a lot that I learned in this movie that I didn't know about Harriet Tubman. Let's start with the fact that she was born Araminta Ross. I might have known that before, but it definitely was a memory refresher. So Araminta Ross, affectionately known as Minty in the movie. I don't think I knew that. I don't think I knew that her nickname was Minty. I always knew her only as Harriet Tubman. She was born March 1822, and she passed in March of 1913. It says that she was between 90 and 91. I haven't added up those years, but I'm trying to figure out why that's a question. But it's between 90 and 91 she passed. And of course, as we know, she did a lot on her mission as an abolitionist and freedom fighter. She was born into slavery. She escaped and made some subsequent 13 missions to rescue approximately 70 enslaved people. I think the first thing that hit me in this movie was thinking about her traveling 100 miles by foot, you know, from Maryland to Pennsylvania. that's probably most impressive just right off the bat. I mean, it's one of those things where, I learned about her story as a kid, in elementary school. But I guess revisiting these facts now as an adult, kind of hits you a different way. You think about somebody traveling 100 miles on foot, and it's like, whoa. So that, I think, was the first thing that hit me. And then I think, the second thing was just thinking about a person who finds, okay, so what I'll do is I won't assume that, everyone knows the facts of her life. So I'll mention some things that you may know, but just kind of count it as me trying to make sure I track my way through the story properly. So she found out that she was going to be sold to the South, and she just wasn't having it. She knew that she said something in the movie like, people that go to the South like don't return, or a particular place that she was talking about, maybe a particular plantation or something like that. So she decided to go ahead and give it a shot as far as freedom. And her first mission, now what I want to find out, I didn't do this beforehand, I'm going to find this out later, how many of the events in the movie actually line up with her real life. I did find out about one particular scene that lined up. But anyway, as she traveled, she fled, she left her dad and left, the guy's name was Reverend Green, and he kind of told it away, she took that way, and at some point, she actually was tracked down by her slave owners. She jumped into the river, and they all thought that she drowned. Now, I would say, hey, Kyra, thanks for hanging out. How are you doing this weekend? I would say that that's probably the first thing I need to figure out, if that's a true part of the story, as far as her jumping in the river, and, because that seemed like the end there. And for everybody that was there, the other slave owners, that was like the end. They didn't even think she survived that. But of course she did, and she made it all the way to Philadelphia. So that was the first thing that really hit me, in the movie. But then the second thing was her finding her way to freedom, and then, which I can relate to in a different way, but you think about this scale, her finding her way to freedom and then saying, like, I'm not happy just being free alone. Like, I have to travel back 100 miles on foot to go get my family and friends, and to think about the fact that that was the devotion of her life all the way to the end is pretty amazing. It just makes you think about it all over again, and why we really celebrate her. So I thought that altogether the movie I thought it was a really good movie. I thought it was a great depiction from the facts that I knew about her life. I was about to cry about at least 4 times in the movie, because it just hits you like that. To think that she would go back and free over 70 slaves, and then lead, what was it that she led? The raid on Combahee Ferry. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And she basically freed over it says 700 here, but it was like 750, I think, in the movie that it said. So yeah, she lived her life the way that we all intend to, as far as like making the most out of a bad situation, And so one of the things that they talked about, in fact, this is what I'll do. I'll go down the facts. Let's talk about 10 facts about Harriet Tubman. Some of these I knew, some of these I didn't. So Harriet Tubman was a famous abolitionist who won renown for her exploits in guiding her fellow slaves to freedom on the Underground Railroad. She also served the Union Army during the Civil War as a scout and a spy. I don't think I knew that she was a spy. And here's 10 facts to expand our knowledge. So fact 1, Tubman was born into slavery in eastern Maryland sometime between 1820 and 21. It says, because of the cruelty of her various masters, she desired to somehow escape from bondage from a very early age and free others as well. She would later recall, I had seen their tears and sighs, I had heard their groans, and would give every drop in my veins to free them. And she did mention that in the movie. They did have her say that in the movie. Hey, Steven. Thanks for hanging out, bro. How you doing, man? Let me know if you all can still hear me pretty well. Sometimes my microphone acts up. So, they had her to say that in the movie, that she saw their tears and sighs, heard their groans, and would give every drop of blood to free them. That was very apparent because every time she wanted to go back to free more people, Leslie Odom, who played... Let me tell you who Leslie Odom played. Leslie Odom was Will Stillman, I think his name was. And he basically was a person who was in Philadelphia who happened to be an abolitionist, and he helped her to free more slaves. But every time he would say to her that, this mission is dangerous, like, I know you love your people, I know you love your family, she would always basically say, like, she would never let him tell her what she couldn't do. In fact, after a while, that became a theme in the movie where every time he would say to her, like, you can't do, like, this is impossible, that's when she would go and accomplish the impossible. So she definitely, that was her mission. She said to them in a meeting when they passed the slave fugitive law, and things were going crazy, and she mentioned to them, like, you all have no idea what it's like to be in the midst of slavery. She was like, we can't give up. These are people that really need our help, and you all are privileged to have been born free, so you have no idea what this is like. And from there she really got their applause and got their validation. So the second fact, it says, as a child, she received a severe head injury. As she was doing errands, an overseer tried to stop a runaway slave by throwing a 2-pound weight at him. He hit Tubman instead, who was standing nearby the runaway, and caused her skull to crack, which affected her health for the rest of her life, often in the form of seizures. Talk about overcoming something, because it did say she had a skull fracture. And oh my goodness, I can only imagine what that was like, especially during those times earlier in our medical history. So she suffered from seizures and spells, as they call it in the movie, and headaches, they also said. And this really affected her, but even still, that didn't stop her. Eventually, after a while, she had these premonitions, which she really saw as a means of guiding her on her way. Fact 3, after escaping from slavery, she returned to Maryland in 1850 as an Underground Railroad conductor. She chose to do so after hearing her niece was soon to be auctioned off. She would go on to rescue over 70 other slaves until the outbreak of the Civil War, and did not fail a single rescue. It was during this time she acquired her nickname Moses. And that is true. They said she didn't lose one person, There was a point in the movie where her name was added to, the list of freedom fighters and black freedom fighters and people who have done, major things as far as freeing slaves or being free. And they had a 0 by her name because she lost no one. Hey, what's up, Jada? Shannon, thanks for hanging out. Let me know if you all saw the movie already as well and what your thoughts are. So, as it says in this statement, when she heard that her niece was soon to be auctioned off, I mean, just think about something motivating you to travel 100 miles, by foot, or just period, prior to today. Like, that's really motivation, but that's what it, pushed her to do. Fact 4, she employed numerous disguises on her first successful attempt to escape slavery. Now, they showed a few of these, but I'm interested to see what it says here. She would often pretend to be a field hand by walking around with chickens or as a house servant when she stayed at the home of an abolitionist couple. One notable disguise she used was pretending to read a newspaper to allay suspicion, as she was known to be illiterate. She employed spirituals and songs as coded messages to her followers. Now that was another thing that was pretty interesting. And by the way, the lead actor, forgot her name, Cynthia Erivo, she had a really nice voice. This is my first time, seeing her. I don't think I've seen her act before or anything else that she does. But she was a beautiful black woman and had a beautiful voice too. And so it was interesting how she would sing certain songs and those songs would be coded messages. And it also showed that she was illiterate, so she would read the newspaper in order to, detract and distract from who she really was. So she was extremely clever. Fact 5, Tubman joined the Union Army as a nurse, but also acted as a scout and spy behind enemy lines. Despite her efforts and general fame, she was only able to acquire a nurse's pension after the war ended. Wow. Now that's something heavy right there. Wow. So I didn't know that she worked for the Union Army. I didn't know that she was a spy either. Yeah, pretty deep. Fact 6, one of the most famous missions she took part in was the raid on Combahee Ferry in South Carolina. During this raid, she worked with Union Colonel James Montgomery to free over 700 slaves at once. I didn't know that either. I mean, she was military smart. And she learned all of this just on the journey. Fact 7, at one point after the war, her financial situation became so dire, she fell prey to a gold smuggling con. I didn't know that. Now, this wasn't in the movie. The incident and cause surrounding it provoked, I don't know what that means. It provoked outrage, and many of her friends and acquaintances railed to support her in response. Now, I didn't know that. Her financial situation became so dire after the war, she fell prey to a gold smuggling con. I'm gonna have to look that up because that's an interesting fact. I don't think I've ever heard that before. Fact number 8, like many other high-profile women of her time, she became heavily involved with promoting women's suffrage with figures like Susan B. Anthony. And I don't think I knew that she worked with Susan B. Anthony. Though it may have sunk her further into poverty, she frequently traveled to give speeches on the topic in Washington, D.C. and New York City. Didn't know that either. Fact number 9, she underwent brain surgery in the 1890s to alleviate the headaches she suffered for most of her life. Inspired by soldiers she had seen going through surgery during the war, she refused anesthesia for the operation. Holy shit. Wow. Okay. Wait a minute. I gotta stop the music for that. Oh my God. Okay. So Harriet Tubman is officially the strongest woman on earth right now for me. And I had to, how they say, have a moment of silence. I'm going to read that again. Fact number 9, she underwent brain surgery in the 1890s to alleviate the headaches she had suffered for most of her life. Inspired by soldiers she had seen going through surgery during the war, she refused anesthesia for the operation. Y'all, she had brain surgery with no anesthesia. Okay, I'm gonna have to play the music again because I'm really like I can't. It's somebody who feels me. If you're listening to this later on the podcast, you won't be able to reply right away. Hopefully, you will reply right afterwards, especially after hearing that, because I don't think any of us knew that. Because I've never heard anybody talk about that. She had brain surgery with no anesthesia. She is officially the toughest woman on earth. Like, that's crazy. Okay, now I gotta start asking some of y'all watching. Carl, did you know that? Harry, did you know that? Somebody please tell me that I'm not the only one that did not know that. Wow. All right, we're gonna talk about that more. I might do a whole episode just on that. That's crazy. Fact number 10, Tubman died in the home for the aged. She herself had founded, and it did say she founded. I didn't know that she had founded an elderly home. She was buried with military honors in the Fort Hill Cemetery in Auburn, New York, which also included such figures as Secretary of State William Seward. I'm going to put this link in the comment section of this live stream. And those that are watching or who will watch later, check out this link. Look at these facts. I think you may find them very interesting. Teresa, thank you for responding. Teresa, for those that are listening to this later on the podcast, Teresa said, Harriet Tubman is a G. I didn't know that. A few things you said I didn't know. Teresa, she had brain. Oh, BJ, you just came on. BJ, fact of the day. Harriet Tubman had brain surgery with no anesthesia. She is officially the G of all G's, as Teresa so eloquently said. Yeah, I'm sorry, because somebody's going to be like, okay, let it go. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. Nobody gets the tougher award than, like, from now on, if anybody, this is my little inside joke, right? From now on, even if I'm watching sports, I don't care if I'm watching basketball. Okay, I just put the link in the comments. Right, BJ. BJ said, say what? Okay, exactly. Not only Teresa said, right, that's crazy. I couldn't do that. Who could? Like, what the hell? Okay, I just put the all right, this is for proof. Not that you all need it, but you gotta read this for yourself. So I just put the link in the chat for those that are watching live to go and check out those facts afterwards. I can't say, yeah, it's really crazy. I'm really, so, you know, it's one of the things that really hit me about this movie, you know, just really seeing her perseverance. I mean, who travels 13 missions over 100 miles. And then there was one point in the movie where after make sure I get this right, the Slave Fugitive Act, where slave owners and spies, like anybody, you know, could, you know, go on a mission for people who were, you know, slaves, and it caused havoc, right? And so during that time, you know, in Philadelphia, where she was at the time, things went crazy. So I'm sorry I'm forgetting names, y'all. But the guy that Leslie Odom played, he was like, okay, we gotta scramble. Like, at this point, this means total chaos. And so at that point, you know, their desire was to go to Canada, you know, they pushed that way. And so, you know, Harriet Tubman was like, okay, cool. And we're, you know, from Canada, I need to be traveling back to get my people. And he's like, that's over 600 miles. Like, it would take weeks, months to do that. Now, I know she was illiterate, but I know that she got the gist of what that meant because she traveled the road. So that 100 miles times 6, she could put that together. And in the movie, she went off. Like, I don't give a damn. I don't care how many miles it is. She said, I don't decide whether I'm going to free people or go back to free slaves based on how far away they are, like based on the distance. And that really was a deep one too. And what did she do? Travel right back. It just, yeah. So, I was watching one little short documentary where the person, in a very eloquent way, said something that hit the nail for me. She said like two sentences, like two facts. Like Harriet Tubman, was a former slave who escaped, and found her way to freedom. And then the second fact was that, she traveled back and freed over 70 slaves. And she said, for most of you all, I know that that's probably the most that especially from school. In fact, she echoed it from that standpoint. She said, in school, that would be pretty much all that you learn. And then she went into some other things. And that's why this is hitting me so deeply, because a lot of this stuff I just did not know. So yeah, how long have we been on here? I can't see the time. Don't want to make this too long. I do want to get some of your thoughts. Those of you all that have seen the movie, drop a line real quick. I want to read some of your comments for those that will be listening to this on the podcast later, so we can get some other perspectives in here. So until you all do that, I'll give maybe a few more thoughts that I had, about this movie, and then, we'll wrap it up. So Harriet, I think that they did a great job on the screenplay. There was a few times as a musician that, like, with some of the more intense and triumphant times, like they would play the music, and it really made me think about it again, like how much, the right music just accentuates the moments. But they did a great job on the film score. They did a great job on the cast. Okay, so here's one of my this is a fun fact. This is a fun fact of Aaron Hill watching Harriet. Like, this is I'll have a top fun facts about me. So my fun fact, number one and probably the only one, I was looking for Morgan Freeman in this movie. Like, this was a movie where it just had Morgan Freeman written all over it, right? One of those older movies. So there's a little meme that I put up on my Facebook page, and maybe I'll reshare it. In fact, what I'll do is I'll put it in the chat of this live stream. There's a meme that I put up of this picture that I found. And it says Morgan Freeman at age 8. And at age 8, I don't think Morgan Freeman was ever young. Like, I don't care what images you find, Morgan Freeman was never young. He always was the age. Anyway, excuse my silly humor, right? So I was looking for Morgan Freeman in this movie. I was looking for him in this movie. In fact, her father, I want to see what you all think, the ones that have seen this and those of y'all that will eventually watch it. Her father, to me, seemed like the person that Morgan Freeman would have played. Like, when you see the guy, he did a great job, too, by the way. I forgot his name, but he did a great job. But it was a Morgan Freeman role. So I was surprised that I didn't see him in this movie. It just felt like one of those movies. But all the actors, Leslie Odom, Cynthia Erivo, who else was in this movie? Let me see if I could grab the cast again. Joe Alwyn, Janelle Monáe, the artist, she played a role in this movie as well. She played Marie Buchanan, a boarding house proprietor in Philadelphia. Leslie Odom was William Still, a writer and abolitionist in Philadelphia who connects Minty Tubman with the North's Underground Railroad. Okay, so here's another thing. Hey Isaiah, hey Andre. Here's another thing I didn't know about Harriet Tubman. Besides the fact that I didn't remember that her name was Araminta Ross and that her nickname was Minty. I also didn't know that her name Harriet was from her mother's name. She basically adopted her mother's name when Leslie Odom, William Still, told her, as a person who's free, one of the things that you should do that most freed slaves do is immediately change their name. He's like, what name would you like to change your name? And she thought about her name and she said, well, Harriet because of her mom and Tubman because of her husband. So I didn't know that. Janelle Monáe, played a great part in this movie as well. She did a great job. I don't know many of the other actors, but I catch as many movies as I once did. So I thought they did a great job. I thought all the actors were on point. I didn't feel like any part of this story was cheesy at all, really. You know, I think one of the most significant moments in the movie was when she went back for her first trip to free some more of her family and friends, and when they got to the river, and she decided that crossing the river was the thing to do, and they were all reluctant, and this was the moment they said was definitely a fact. This was not exaggerated. She gets in the river because they don't want to cross the river, and she shows them how they're going to cross it, that she walks straight through the river, and of course the water is coming up, and eventually, you know, she doesn't know how deep it is. She gets to some part in the middle of the river, she prays, and then she keeps walking, and the water doesn't, you know, it's not high enough to come over. It allows all of them to be, you know, at that point motivated, and they cross the river. That was a really emotional part of the movie, especially because if they didn't go that way, the movie showed that they would have gotten, you know, caught by the slave owners and the people that were looking for them. So, yeah. So has anybody else seen this movie? Those that are watching the live stream right now, and even if those that are listening to the podcast version of this, drop your drop your message in the form of a message to this podcast. I'm sorry, I'm hesitating. This is the first time I've done a live video that also was a podcast, so my brain is like thinking back and forth. So those that are listening to this as a podcast, drop a line by putting a voicemail message to the podcast, or just head on over to my Facebook page or Instagram page. Drop a line there. I want to know what you thought about this movie. I thought it was great. I would definitely go back to see it again, and I would definitely highly recommend it to others. And yeah, I just think it was a great reenactment. It takes my respect for Harriet Tubman through the roof. And fact number, you all know where I'm going at this point. I'm going to drive this point in the hole. Fact number 9, she underwent brain surgery with no anesthesia. All right, so on that tip, I'm done. She is my hero. I will never complain again in life of anything because of Harriet Tubman. So yeah, that's what I thought. I hope that you found this funny or helpful or interesting or entertaining in any way. So at any rate, drop a line. Let me know what you think or what you thought of the movie. And thanks for joining me. Look out for this track that you all hear playing in the background. And again, this is another important thing with this particular video, podcast, however you're consuming it. The track that you hear in the background, please find a way to drop a line to me to tell me what you think the name of that song should be. It's going to be an instrumental chill out track that I release in a few days, and I don't have a name for it. So I'm going to let this last 20 seconds be just listening to the track and see what mood it puts you in. And drop a line. Let me know what you think the name of the track should be. I love the melody of this track. So that's the first time I actually tried playing it to this track. I just made this track yesterday, by the way. And one other thing that I'm going to do with this track, while you all are listening to it, is I'm going to come out with 2 versions of this track. One is just a purely instrumental version like this, just for you to, have some quiet time, get into the zone, study, chill out, smoke, vape, whatever you do, right? And then the second I'm gonna do release right along with that is gonna be the first track in my new series of neurological reprogramming. And what I mean by that is that I have a concept called Deep Grooves. Deep Grooves is an album of this kind of stuff that I was putting together starting about maybe, wow. I just thought about a song I have on there called Tony's Groove. Shout out to my homie, Anthony Jones. And I was thinking about how far back I did that track. Wow. Okay, so this album has been in the works. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Teresa. Teresa, I want to say to you, I really appreciate your love and support. It is great having you as a new friend. I just want to tell you that I really appreciate you, and I appreciate the love and support. I also appreciate that you appreciate the things that I deliver on a daily basis. So just want to take a second to tell you thank you, that I appreciate you. So I was thinking about a song that I wrote on this project, originally called Deep Grooves, and it's called Tony's Groove. And I just had a little moment where I'm like, wow, wait a minute. I started writing that song back in like 2009, 2010. So yeah. In fact, I'll see if I can. Oh no, it's on my other computer. I was gonna let you all hear a snippet of that. But that was on a project that I've been working on now for 10 years. I feel embarrassed to say that. This should have been out. And this album is called Deep Grooves. And Deep Grooves is a project that was just dedicated to these kind of chill out grooves. This is where my musical life started. In fact, it started on the other side of this room, in fact, when I was 17 years old. I stayed with my dad, and the room was turned around the other way. My beat machine was on that wall, and at 17, this is what I was doing. And so, I have a whole album that I was putting together of those kind of things, called it Deep Grooves. Fast forward a year and a half. About a year and a half to 2 years ago, I was revisiting the album and looking to finish it. And the name Deep Grooves hit me in a different way. So now the concept is a double entendre. One side is just that is these kind of grooves. The other side is the concept of deep grooves as it pertains to neurological pathways. The deep grooves that we have in our mind with different habits and things that are repetitious and habitual to us. So I study psychology pretty heavily and neuroscience and that kind of thing. And I'm fascinated with how the brain works and how we can reproduce a habit, and it has a deep groove in our brain to where we become programmed. As you all know, that has some pros and it has some cons depending on what's in those grooves, depending on what we're programmed with. If you're programmed from the perspective of love and sharing and kindness, it's a great thing. If you aren't, and you're programmed by some other things that are the contrast to that, is not so good. So I feel that in music today, especially like our contemporary music that I grew up with, like hip hop, there's some not so good programming happening. And so I decided to make this album not only about these chill out grooves, but about some motivational quotes that I have that you all hear me say every day or share, and to put those over top of these tracks. You know, just me like reciting some of my favorite quotes. This will be for you to use for morning motivation, you know, meditative time to just reflect or draw back to center, so to speak. Like, you know, when you could be bothered by all the things in the world, I'm looking for this to like center you, bring you into a positive place and that kind of thing. Hey, Eugene, thanks for watching. Thank you, Teresa. Teresa says, keep it coming. I definitely will. I appreciate you. So that's what I'm going to do with this track. This track, I'm going to release like this, just for that instrumental chill out groove. And then I'm also going to release another version where I'm saying some of my quotes. So you'll be able to listen to either one based on how you feel. So I'm going to go ahead and do this on the record while I got you all here. I'll use it as a way to not only motivate myself, but to commit. So I'll have this to you by Tuesday. If I don't have this out by Tuesday, everybody that's listening to me right now and those that will listen later, you got to come back. You got to get on my case. You got to help a brother out. Help me to go ahead and knock this out and be able to deliver this music. So you'll be able to download it on, you know, Apple Music, Spotify, all that kind of good stuff. Or you could purchase it from my site, AaronHillTV.com, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, that's that. And look out for this track in the back of my upcoming video, talking about some of the back exercises that I've learned. And once again, last thing I'll say, and then I'm gone. Based on this mood that you hear, drop a line and tell me what you think I should name this song. I gotta name it in 48 hours, so please. I almost want to say to promote those that are here, the first person that drops a line, that's gonna be the name of the song. You got it. And I have to. If I don't like the name that you chose, I gotta use it but find some derivative, but still make it where you win. Maybe I should do that. I'm a little afraid. I gotta say. But let's see how it goes. If nothing else, the very first person that drops a name right now has influence of the name. At least we'll know that your influence was there if I don't choose the exact name. But drop a line, let me know what mood this puts you in and what you think I should name it. And that's about it. I appreciate you all. Thank you for joining me on this Sunday night and hanging with a brother. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you didn't get to see Harriet yet, go check it out. And come back to this stream if possible and drop a line. I love to keep the conversation going and let me know what you think. All right. Thanks a lot. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. If it's evening for you or if it's morning somewhere else. So take care. Peace.